There is a vegetable that produces food for 20 years from a single planting. Plant it once in spring. Harvest shoots in March. Harvest leaves through October. Repeat for 2 decades. More iron than spinach. More calcium than milk. More vitamin C than kale. Complete nutrition from a plant that required 0 annual labor. From the 12th century through the 1900s, it grew in every cottage garden across Europe. England, France, Germany, the Netherlands, every monastery, every peasant plot. For 500 years, it was the backbone of survival. Today, you will not find it in any store, not in seed catalogs, not in garden centers, not in agricultural textbooks. Most people alive have never heard its name. This was not lost. This was erased. You cannot sell what grows forever. You cannot patent what refuses to die. You cannot profit from a plant that feeds families for generations without asking for a single seed purchase in return. The vegetable that required no replanting vanished the moment replanting became profitable. In 1550, if you walked into a cottage garden in Tudor England, you would see it immediately. Thick green stalks pushing through morning frost in March. Arrow-shaped leaves spreading wide by May. A plant that stood taller than a child, anchoring the garden like an old friend. They called it Good King Henry, Chenopodium bonus-henricus. The name distinguished it from Bad King Henry, a poisonous cousin. One fed you, one killed you. The naming was practical. Peasants did not have time for poetry. The Romans knew it centuries earlier. Pliny the Elder wrote that Emperor Tiberius demanded it as tribute from Germanic tribes in the 1st century AD. An emperor wanted it that badly. The harvest came in waves. First the shoots in March, thick, tender, tasting like asparagus. Then the leaves from May through October, rich, savory, tasting like spinach. Year after year, decade after decade. The secret was underground, a taproot that drove 3 feet deep into the soil. It survived drought, it survived frost, it survived neglect. When spring arrived, it returned without being asked. No tilling, no replanting, no seeds to buy every spring. It just showed up every year, like a loyal friend. For 500 years, it fed Europe without asking for anything in return. Then we stopped asking it to grow. Into 1989, a study published in Acta Horticulturae measured the nutritional content of Good King Henry. The numbers made modern spinach look like cardboard. Iron was 3.2 milligrams per 100 grams. Spinach manages 2.7 milligrams per 100 grams. Calcium was 303 milligrams per 100 grams. Milk offers 120 milligrams per 100 grams. Vitamin C was 130 milligrams per 100 grams. Kale reaches 93 milligrams per 100 grams. Then in 2022, the Backyard Lard ranked perennial vegetables for nutritional density. Good King Henry outperformed spinach, kale, and chard across multiple micronutrient categories. It has more B vitamins than most leafy greens. It offered complete nutrition from a plant that takes care of itself. It was the backbone of medieval vegetable soups. Combined with leeks, chard, and bread, it had created vitamin-rich broths that sustained peasant farmers through brutal winters. When wheat failed, when livestock died, when stored grain ran out, Good King Henry was still there, waiting in the garden. The yield was staggering for a perennial. One plant produces 2 to 3 pounds of edible material per year for 15 to 20 years. The total yield from a single planting was 40 to 60 pounds. No replanting, no seed purchases, just patience. It thrived where modern annuals would die. Poor soil, partial shade, neglect, drought. It tolerated conditions that kill commercial vegetables within weeks. The taproot reached nutrients and moisture that shallow annual roots could never access. From 1200 to 1900, it grew everywhere. England, France, Germany, the Netherlands, every cottage garden, every monastery garden. If you were poor, if you worked the land, if you survived winter, you knew good King Henry. So where is it? Why are we spending billions genetically modifying climate-resilient crops when the perfect drought-proof vegetable already exists? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is a geometry problem. The murder of good King Henry began in 1701 with an English farmer named Jethro Tull. Tull invented the seed drill, a brilliant machine that mechanized planting. But it had one specific requirement: uniformity. The drill favored annuals, crops you plant from scratch every year in perfect straight rows. Wheat, corn, turnips. But good King Henry was chaotic. It grew in clumps. It spread by roots. It did not stay in the line. You could not plant it with a drill. You could not mechanize the harvest. In the language of emerging industrial agriculture, it was inefficient, not because it did not feed people, but because it slowed down the tractor. In 1837, John Deere invented the steel plow. For the first time, farmers could break virgin prairie soil and turn it into farmland. But perennial root systems, the kind good King Henry developed over decades, were the enemy of the plow. They held soil together. They resisted breaking. Annual crops, with their shallow, weak roots, were easy. You plowed, you planted, you harvested, you plowed again. The system selected for annuals, not because they were better for soil, not because they were better for nutrition, but because they were better for machines. In 1900, the tractor replaced the horse. Every single machine we built was designed to do one thing: to wipe the earth clean and start fresh every spring. Perennials like good King Henry fought back. Their roots went down 3 feet. They held the soil. They broke the plows. Machines are only half the story. If the tractor was the weapon, the business model was the motive. In the 1920s, the modern commercial seed industry exploded. Companies like Burpee, Ferry Morse, and Northrop King realized a fundamental truth of capitalism. Perennials are a terrible product. Think about it. If I sell you a packet of spinach seeds, you have to come back and buy more next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. It is recurring revenue. If I sell you good King Henry seeds, I never see you again. You plant it once. Your children are still eating from it 20 years later. Self-sufficiency is the enemy of profit. By 1950, seed catalogs had quietly dropped perennial vegetables. Good King Henry disappeared from commercial offerings, not because it stopped working, because it worked too well. While the tractors were conquering the fields, good King Henry did not actually die. It retreated. It survived in the margins, in the gardens of stubborn grandmothers in Yorkshire, in wild patches near old monasteries, in the mountains of Switzerland where machines could not reach. Then war came. From 1939 to 1945, rationing strangled Britain and Europe. The government launched Dig for Victory campaigns, urging people to grow anything edible. Any perennial vegetable still growing wild became survival itself. Good King Henry required no seeds, no planting, just knowledge of where it grew. During World War II, when ration cards determined survival, those who remembered found it growing wild. Families dug through overgrown gardens. They foraged abandoned monastery grounds. They harvested what their grandmothers had planted decades before. It saved lives when everything else was gone. But after 1945, something shifted. Survivors associated good King Henry with deprivation, with poverty, with the worst years they had ever known. It became old-fashioned, peasant food, something your grandmother ate when there was nothing better. The vegetable that saved them became the vegetable they wanted to forget. The generation that survived refused to pass on the knowledge. Nature plays the long game, and the vault is opening again. In 2009, the Land Institute released Kernza, the first commercially viable perennial grain. It took 2 decades of breeding. Perennial wheat was finally becoming real. The announcement signaled something larger, a recognition that the annual monoculture system could not hold. In 2022, USDA updated the Conservation Stewardship Program to include perennials for the first time. It was a small policy change, but it acknowledged what soil scientists had been measuring for years. Research from the Land Institute shows that perennial crops reduce soil erosion by up to 50% compared to annuals. They sequester carbon. They hold water 5 times better. Their deep roots, 3 feet or more, access moisture and nutrients that shallow annual roots can never reach. Annual agriculture requires tillage. Every year you break the earth open. You plant seeds, and then you often leave the soil bare for months. Wind erosion, water runoff, carbon release. The American Dust Bowl of the 1930s was caused by exactly this: plowing up perennial prairie grasses and replacing them with annual wheat. Perennials like Good King Henry hold soil together year-round. They prevent erosion. They build organic matter. They stabilize ecosystems. Then came nutritional reanalysis. The 2022 Backyard Lard study ranked Good King Henry above kale, spinach, and chard. Folk knowledge confirmed by laboratory analysis. What peasants knew for 500 years, science now confirms. Climate change is forcing the question. Soil degradation is accelerating. Water is becoming scarce. And suddenly, the characteristics we bred out of our food system, deep roots, permanent coverage, self-sufficiency, look less like inefficiency and more like survival. The annual experiment is failing. Good King Henry never actually disappeared. You can buy seeds online today. Good King Henry is not hard to identify. Arrow-shaped leaves, thicker than spinach. It grows in clumps with thick stems. It can reach 2 to 3 feet tall when mature. You can buy seeds online from Chiltern Seeds in the UK and Baker Creek in the US. These are heritage seed companies that remember what commercial catalogs forgot. Plant in spring or fall. Partial shade is fine. Poor soil is fine. It tolerates conditions that would kill modern annuals. Once established, it spreads slowly by rhizomes, not aggressively, but persistently. Harvest the shoots in March. Cut them like asparagus. Harvest the leaves from May through October. Cut them like spinach. Leave the root intact. It will return next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Let one plant go to seed in late summer. Collect the tiny black seeds. Store them dry. Share them freely. This is knowledge that survives through generosity, not commerce. You can plant them this spring. Unlike every other vegetable you grow, you will not have to plant them again. They will return every year for the next 20 years. Food that does not need a tractor. Food that does not need a seed company. Food that does not need a king's permission. You will be eating food that exists outside the industrial timeline. When those shoots come up next March, and the March after that, you participate in a quiet rebellion. Food that grows on its own terms, by its own rules, without asking permission. In 1593, King Henry IV of France made a promise: a chicken in every pot, every Sunday. It was a beautiful idea, a political promise of abundance. But it depended on wealth, on commerce, on a functioning economy. When economies collapsed, the promise failed. The other King Henry, the plant that lived in gardens for 500 years, asked for nothing. It just grew. One made a promise that required the world to cooperate. The other kept a promise the world had forgotten how to hear. Some promises are made with words. Some are kept in roots that refuse to die. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to Green Vault. We are digging up the history they tried to plow over. The next vault opens soon.